chemicals sourced from overseas suppliers known to intelligence. The shipment was enough to trigger an immediate federal alert. By the end of the review, it's far bigger than anyone imagined. It had survived operating in silence, hiding behind everyday environments, campuses, rental homes, abandoned warehouses, while moving drugs across state lines with precision. And although the raid had captured its central figure, the files proved the investigation was far from over. The operation had been cracked open. Network's full reach was still unfolding hour by hour. While investigators were unraveling the scale of the narcotics, another battle was unfolding far from the quarry base. This in the public arena, where politics and law enforcement collided head-on. The arrest Noor and the sweep across the Minnesota campus had already drawn attention, but everything intensified when Congresswoman Ilhan Omar stepped forward with a claim. We're unraveling the scale of the narcotics network. Another battle was on. Politics and law enforcement collided head-on. The arrest of Khalif Noor and the sweep across
Noor, ABC's World News Tonight, America.
Investigation had been cracked open, but the network's full reach was still unfolding. Our scale of the narcotics network. Another battle was far from the quarry base. This one in the public arena, where politics and law enforcement collided head-on. The
Welcome back. Nearly 100 Minnesota mayors are sounding the alarm over responsibly maintain infrastructure, hire and retain employees, and local taxpayers. Letter comes as feds say fraud could top live, help disabled adults independently in one-on-one people.
Going on since 2018, 2019. And this, the defeat of Governor Wall. Of course, this is up close and personal. Do you suspect that there's an actual audit team or pulling back?
Y'all are doing it just because.
There's an easier time figuring out where all the money went. You see that? Well, it is absolutely astonishing. We've got to
That's loud.
Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry, your policy aide, Abir Salah, also entered a guilty plea. He was tied to the case.
Can you
Defendants, including your eventually returned, as mentioned,
soda
to
pops?
Jacob Fry, Attorney
Like
General
two?
Keith Ellison, Congresswoman Ilhan
Thank you.
Omar, prosecutor in the case, Assistant U.S. Attorney Joe Thompson. And I asked him, indicted. At the time, he could not comment on future indictments, but even back then, the feds made it very clear we're still
terrorist organizations. How is so sleazy? And so much of this money help children and children. They didn't care at all about that. They just wanted more names to put into more fraudulent documents, and then the people showed it looks like rubber stamped it. The money started to flow, and they never looked back. This was set up to
There goes the
defraud
rubber
American
stamper and that
taxpayers.
automatic
And
pen.
I'll tell you, we need to go after all of these folks who need to be held accountable for what I believe is criminal behavior.
You know, senators, you were talking about what was happening. Our detail today that we're drilling down on, one of two of them, is the food programs. I mean, you've got a congresswoman on Capitol Hill right now, Ilhan Omar, whose people in her very own staff, one of whom has already committed and is convicted because they confessed to doing this, that they took $2 million in food that was supposed to help people during COVID and used it for personal benefit. I mean, this is a big deal, reaching all the way to Capitol Hill. What are the ramifications there?
Well, there needs to be legal procedures. You got to go after these people who I think intentionally refuse. I think Minnesota really didn't go ahead and try to enforce the law. And we've seen this also in Minnesota with we've seen it with welfare. Apparently, they were trying to sign up so many people they ran out of names. So to the website www.randomnames.com to make up names. The money was so big. You understand that some of it went to buy BMWs, Mercedes-Benz. Some of it even went to buy real estate overseas. And it does look to me, Harris, I think you were also on last week, so many of these government programs are just set up to be taken advantage of, and the Democrats seem to want to do that. They don't look for accountability. We're seeing it right now with the Obamacare and what the Democrats are trying to do with these additional Biden bonus COVID subsidies. And as the Wall Street Journal pointed out today, you know, Obamacare is a mecca for fraud.
Make sure the door is
Look,
locked.
I'm looking at my notes here because I know we have a bit of a quote to speak to what you're saying. I mean, the Medicare Medicaid is so important, as well as the Senate is set to take a test vote Thursday on this part of it. The Wall Street Journal editorial board writes that those subsidies are, quote, a mecca for fraud and ripe for gaming. Here's part of it. The GAO last fall began an undercover test into which it submitted insurance applications for fictitious individuals to the federal Obamacare exchange and insurance brokers. Nearly all of its indented people were able to enroll in subsidized plans despite submitting false or no records to verify their identities and incomes. Senator, as we learn more about this, the American people, you used one word, but they've been ripped off and they cannot be reimbursed.
And Obamacare continues to pay the American people. I'm a doctor. I've practiced medicine for 24 years. I want people to get the care they need. The doctor they choose at lower cost. Obamacare has made that essentially impossible. And so the Democrats realize the failures of Obamacare, so they've chopped it up with big subsidy checks directly to insurance companies. It doesn't go through people, it doesn't go through consumers. It goes right from the federal government to the insurance companies. And, you know, Obama promised that premiums would drop by $2,500 a family. It's love getting those checks. Their stocks are 500%. So Obamacare was never affordable. And what the Democrats are trying to do now is saying, oh my gosh, we need these COVID subsidies going, these added bonus subsidies, and they want to send another $100 million right to the federal treasury to the works best for them. The opportunity to make insurance companies compete by lowering the prices, by offering other opportunities for insurance that works for that specific family, not the straitjacket that is the one size fits all of Obamacare.
And look, the shutdowns that Democrats perpetrated on this entire nation and put people even in a bigger financial hole to be able to afford Obamacare when it does go up, unless they can agree with Republicans to do something to actually reform the system. I mean, that is even more unforgivable on the parts of Democrats, what they've done with that shutdown and still didn't fix the problem. Great to have you on the program, and thank you for all of your years as a doctor. It really played a role today, as I'm sure it did for many of your patients for years. Good to see you, Senator.
Great to be with you. You got it. So, Minnesota Congresswoman and squad member Ilhan Omar says she goes with blame as the Trump administration probes if millions of taxpayer dollars from her state were sent to terrorists in her native Somalia.
There was a linkage in that the money that they had stolen going to terrorism, and that is a failure of the FBI and our court system in not figuring that out and basically charging them.
Fox News contributor Mary Catherine Harris joins us now. It is, interesting that she doesn't mention all the associates connected to her campaign worker, and places where she hosted her campaign parties at as well, MK.
Yeah, there also wasn't a denial. That is like sort of a tell to me. I think she knows much more about all of this than she's let on the whole time, as you allude to. She has plenty of associates, close friends, and allies who are pushing themselves off of $250 million defrauded from one program alone, maybe $1 billion in the state. And this is money that would have gone to children being fed, the homeless being housed, and did not. That's what the compassion adds up to. But the fact is, a lot of people were making a ton of money off of this, and she just wants to lay it off on someone else. But ma'am, you're in charge. You're in charge of the district. You're in charge of making federal law. You should be interested in checking where federal money is going, especially when it's supposed to go to the compassionate services it's supposed to be all about. But that's not the situation here, and I think it's true for Tim Walz as well as T. Delson, who's on audio, on tape, saying to the folks who defrauded Feeding Our Future, saying, I'll help you out with this. Let's get you out of this investigation. Like, on it.
And that is the major part of this. They went out with the whistleblowers, and I think that's part of the investigation I'm going to unfold. Meanwhile, also happened today, Jasmine Crockett is expected to make an announcement as she raised a last-minute Texas Senate run after the Supreme Court allowed Texas to make a congressional district map. But she's very drawn out her district. They recently allowed that to happen with Bernice Johnson, but they decided to redraw it, so she won't have a seat anymore. Cole is getting out of the race now. What do you make of these developments?
Yeah, it's interesting. Obviously, I think Crockett would be a dream for Texas Republicans who paint her as far, far, far too left for Texas. She was running in a D plus 30 points district, so a very, very, very Democratic district. And she's really good at the showmanship part. All of politics is a reality show now, so she's going to show up at like 11 a.m. this morning, like, will I or won't I? She will. And the problem for Democrats is this was already a crowded primary with a couple of like pretty good moderate signaling people, and she's going to jump in here and be not at all moderate signaling and probably cause a problem for Democrats. But she'll raise a lot of money and make a lot of noise.
Yeah, and I think she may actually win because in all polling, at least for the, she's going to get blown up out of it. But as far as the primary, she's blowing out all the competition. So it's going to be interesting for the Democratic primary. For the general, not so much. MK, thanks so much for getting up this morning.
I got that.
yes, of course, as I think Somali, we are in this country as Americans. Yeah. We are citizens, we are productive part of this nation, and we will continue to be. You know Stephen Miller well. Yeah, I mean, he's a Stephen Bayanaki. Stephen's Jewish, first of all. Stephen's a great person. Stephen's someone who loves this country and working hard for it. And Stephen and his family have been totally and completely under fire and accosted with all kinds of threats for doing what they're doing. It was the day after Charlie Kirk's assassination that Katie Miller was stormed by someone outside of her home who said, "I'm watching you." There were wanted signs by their home in Virginia accusing him of crimes against humanity. They have been under threat. As Stephen Miller said, it's an organized campaign of dehumanization, vilification. And that's what this is. It's organized. They're being called Nazis. It's just not Ilhan Omar. It is others too. And it is shameful rhetoric that should be toned down.
Thank you, Kaylee. Nice to see you on Monday as always.
See you.
Did that take you right there? I mean, that explained it all away right there, right, Jess?
Yeah, so the Somali real victims.
Yes.
So her father was a colonel in this Islamist communist Somali regime that the UN accused of committing war crimes and disgusting human atrocities. She leaves Somalia, she comes here,
Right.
that's immigration fraud, gets into Congress, and is worth 30 dollars from American taxpayers. And Biden's gone and told and fought. And she was more upset at the fraud than us Somalis. We're the real victims. Think about a lot of people are on food stamps, they don't have a high school education, they can barely speak English. And all Stephen Miller says is you got to assimilate and be a public charge. And she would not be.